Fans of Warhammer 40,000, super heavy Grav-Tanks and Supreme Commander experimental units, thank you very much for joining me for a quick speculation stroke preview video looking at the Astraeus super heavy Grav-Tank for the Primaris Space Marines. So the Warhammer Community website has recovered from its brief crash, I presume caused by the massive stampede of traffic when they put this article up. What I'm going to do though is we're going to go through this article here, posted today on the 12th of October, and we're going to look through this preview. So, typical high tech, instead of doing some printout sheets, we're going to look at it on the iPad. Okay, so it starts by saying, what happens when you cross a Sicaran, a Repulsor and a Fellblade meet the Astraeus super heavy tank? And then we get a bit on the tube, so let's play the video and we'll do a bit of react. Ooh, dramatic music. Ooh, Ultramarines. Floating, guns. More Ultramarines. Definitely Supreme Commander style. Coming soon. So there you go. That's pretty teasy, isn't it? Let's watch that one more time. Gosh, I just said Ultramarines and floaty and stuff. Let's see what else we can spot. Okay, so multiple weapon positions as normal, void shield projectors, which he talks about in the article, weapon options. Looks good. Yeah, I like the look of that. Coming soon, well, how soon? That's a question. Right, let's read the article. So this is super ace because, like the Primaris Space Marines, this is new. Fair enough. Now, I first heard about this at the Forge World Open Day at Warhammer World in August, and when I was talking with Darren Parwood and the Forge World designers, they mentioned this, and I mentioned it in the little video report I did at the time, and here we actually have the thing itself, and here we have one in Forge World's pet 40k chapter of choice, the Red Scorpions. Don't forget your favourite space racists. Very good. Right, what do we think of this? Interesting. This is a very interesting mixture of features, and in my view this takes Space Marine vehicles into an entirely new design aesthetic. Well, let's start off with the familiar accelerator autocannons. These are taken straight from the Sicaran, and they've basically been increased in size to look beefier. We have a void shield projector, classic styling that we've used on lots of vehicles before for void shield projectors, and there's one on the other side. Got a pair of heavy bolters, looks pretty normal. These las cannon weapons, you know, familiar design aesthetic. In terms of classic marine styling, that, as far as I see it, is about it. Or even classic imperial styling, and even some of those bits you would say are more modern, such as the Sicaran turret. That's a recent vintage. Let's move on to this semi-new. I guess the semi-new would be this front prong arrangement, which these two booms are reminiscent of the repulsor tank, styling wise, certainly in my view anyway. And then these repulsor plates are borrowed straight from the styling that Games Workshop did on the repulsor tank, but those in turn borrowed off of Grav vehicles from Forge World for the Horus Heresy range, in particular the Talons of the Emperor Legio Custodes range. Where this is nothing like anything that's been before it is kind of this cockpit arrangement here, centrally mounted cockpit, very unlike anything I've seen, or even hull superstructure. A long thin body and these wide side sections, and this more puts me in mind of, well, as I hinted at the start, anyone who's ever played the Supreme Commander games, this really reminds me of UEF experimentals, and in particular this makes me think of the Fat Boy experimental factory from the UEF faction, and that's the one from the original Supreme Commander game, not the second version where the Fat Boy had changed quite a lot. So it does remind me of that. I'm also thinking Thunderbirds. Oh yeah, definitely, I don't know, it just makes me think a bit Thunderbirdy, this thing. And perhaps, is it Space 1999? For those shuttlecraft which carried those cargo pods, yeah, I can see some of that in that as well, yeah. Completely new design aesthetic, I think it's fair to say that this has brought together. Some old elements, but to be quite honest, the dominant visual elements are very new and unlike stuff we've had before. And also a tank that is clearly centered around its main gun turret, more so than any marine vehicle I've ever seen. I mean, with a possible exception, no, even more so than the Fellblade, the Glaive and the Falchion. This turret absolutely dominates. And the secondary weapon systems just look that a bit more secondary than they did on the Fellblade chassis. And let's move on and talk some more. The macro accelerator cannons are particularly powerful, so fire a dozen shots a turn, -2 AP and 3 damage apiece. Doesn't tell us what the strength value is. Don't know what the strength value will be. Hard hitting autocannon so far, well 8. It's clearly going to be more than 8. I might imagine these are in the 10 to 12 range for strength, maybe even as high as 14. We will see. And then it says, meanwhile, lead void shields protect this vehicle, so it's going to have an invulnerable save. We're thinking 8th edition rules here. This isn't going to have an appearance in 7th in the Horus Heresy because it's clearly well after that. And it's going to have a souped up version of Grav backwash rule. Yes, so this thing's going to be an absolute swine to assault in close combat. A nice bit of sales pitch here, unlike its little brother. So clearly you need its big brother to look after it. This makes me laugh, right? The Astraeus super heavy tank doesn't have any transport capacity. Well, humour aside, which I'll get on to, that makes sense. None of the other Marine super heavy, so i.e. the Fellblade series, had any transport capacity. They were purely dedicated fighting vehicles, and this is consistent with that. So yeah, that's a consistent fluff choice. It also avoids me making another video taking the mickey out of Games Workshop about their Primaris transport rules. So basically, so it's going to be great for shooting down flyers, and it will be able to basically float in and out of close combat as you will. So I would imagine to really destroy this in close combat, you're looking at, well, it's not really going to be optimal to destroy in close combat. You need to smash it at range. Right, so I've got a hull down, or a top view, a view onto the deck and the upper turret here. Right, some interesting things. This even more cements how this is an upscaled Sakaran turret. We've even got the ammo bin at the back, the cylindrical sections at the back. I imagine these things might be a revolver cannon design. Great barrel boring opportunity here. And I believe this will be what they somewhat verbosely call an onslaught heavy stubber or whatever it is, and ammo ejector ports. What else do we see looking on the top? So that's the obvious things, but other things we see, well, here's the other void shield generator. Engines at the rear here, these look good. The same styling as the repulsor tank itself. So yeah, that's consistent styling again. These sort of pipe designs, or maybe bar designs, we don't know what those are or supposed to be yet. Yeah, just a very different look. This is much more hard science fiction than Games Workshop normally does. I like it. Question is, how will the community react to the look of this, given it really breaks the mold with Space Marine and Imperial vehicles? I'd argue that's probably what they're aiming to achieve. Right, this is interesting. So this is one of the most advanced kits ever from Forge World. So it's not the most advanced, it's one of the most advanced. I can never make a definitive statement. Every single gun can be moved and repositioned. So on flexible mounts maybe. Even options for sponsor weapons, that's interesting. So are they going to be in addition to the guns we've seen on this already? I don't know. It says, additionally, his Astraeus kit features a custom transparent flying stand designed to support the weight of the model, keeping it absolutely secure. So I don't know if this is going to be in the style of the clear stand that we got with the repulsor tank, which was unusual, or if it's going to be something like we've had from previous Forge World flyers, so particularly the Orion. I would hazard a guess that this needs something more substantial than the Orion to hold it. In terms of resin parts, the plastic fly stand was fine. They also say, from a collector standpoint, if you're looking for an army of exclusively Primaris Space Marines, it's a great centerpiece, equivalent to other iconic Space Marine vehicles like the Thunderhawk. Hopefully it won't be equivalent in price. You won't have to wait long to pick up this massive war machine for yourself. Rules will be available soon, free downloadable rules. Let's hope that's the whole thing. Power level, the stats, and let's not forget the points values, with this being a Forge World kit. And that's your lot. Now let's go back to that first picture. So when they're talking sponsor weapons, I'm sure they're talking about these positions. Maybe these are modular, you can take them off. I can't see another mount where you might put a weapon on it. No. Fascinating looking tank. Let's just go back to the video. Okay, so this is as close as we've got to a front view of this vehicle. Let's see what we can see from that we may not have seen from the side or top. So we haven't got a rear view of this vehicle yet, which is interesting. And if this tells us much more, I mean, kind of got these grav plates all around. So that tells us that that looks like you've got an option of having a las cannon in there as well as a heavy bolter. Certainly look like las cannons. So you've got a las weapon choice for the sponsons, a plasma weapon choice. So these are the same gun, these plasma weapons are the same as mounted on the Redemptor Dreadnought. Then we've got a choice for a las weapon and a heavy bolter weapon there. We've got the heavy stubber there, and then we've got the main accelerator autocannons. Assuming at this point that there's no weapon choice on the accelerator cannons, they're going to be a fixed choice. So just like the Sakaran at the moment. I guess that then opens up the possibility, thinking about recent developments with the Sakaran. Will we see alternate turrets for this tank over time? Who knows? It's clearly going to depend on the success of this model. So is there anything else to say about this? Well, I think let's finish on the Red Scorpions picture. Price, what's the price going to be? Well, they're not telling us, they never do, it's not their sort of MO. I was looking today at my Orion model, and I believe this is mounted on a 150mm base. Now that's an assumption, I may or may not be right. I'm assuming this is a 150mm base. If that's the case, then this model isn't actually that much bigger than the Orion dropship. So my gut feeling is the price point is going to be somewhere around the £275 mark, 250, 275, maybe 300, and Forge would have normally been releasing a super heavy around sort of November time, so it's around the time when they issue the new catalogue, and maybe they found that that's a good price point and it'd be clearly aimed at the Christmas market and birthday market, because there's statistically more birthdays in this latter part of the year, certainly in the United Kingdom. Fewer in the summer, more in the winter. Work that out, see what that means. So it's going to be interesting to see what the price is. When are they going to release this? I suspect we may see this at the Warhammer 40,000 Open weekend at the end of November. So yeah, just in time for Christmas release. So those are my thoughts on what's been shared with regards to the Astraeus Super Heavy Grav-Tank for the Primaris Space Marines. Well, they say for the Primaris Space Marines. Let's be honest, it's for Warhammer 40,000 Space Marines, so M42 Space Marines, that's what it's for. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, particularly with regards to the design aesthetic. Do you like how they're going for kind of a few old elements and then something radically new? Or do you think this is just too way out there to be Imperial? Have the Forge World designers just gone left of centre? I'll be fascinated to hear. And the other thing I'd like to hear from you ladies and gentlemen is, would you like to see me buy, review and build this model on channel Leakycheese? At the moment I've got a question mark on it because it's Primaris. Yeah, this would be a bit of a splash buy for me, a bit of an extravagance, and I'm not sure. I'd be interested to hear what you think about me covering this on channel Leakycheese. Other than that, I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining me. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.